All right, I'll give just everyone a few more minutes to join in. We're now live on YouTube. I'll share the link out with everyone so they can join. Okay, and let's get started. So hi, everyone. Welcome to the 33rd Town Hall. As always, I'm your host, Rajani. I'll still be flying solo today. I believe Rachel will be back with us next week, but I don't know. We'll see. We have a light agenda today, so let's kick things off, starting with Nabil.
Hey, everyone. I wanted to give a quick update on how things are going on the janitor's work. We've recently wrapped up a little bit belatedly, but a prioritization of what the team will focus on, or this one will focus on in Q2. Next slide. So you can see it here. It's also posted on Discuss, but just a quick recap. We're mainly looking at application performance, improving the wallet, some of the research stuff on the data sync layer that Oscar and Dean are working on, improving our onboarding, getting keycard integrated and solving our multiple accounts issue, working on our go-to-market strategy for our S&T utility swarms and how we're actually going to take those and potentially whether it's through advertising or partnerships, how we're going to get those features to grow. And finally, getting desktop implemented with our mobile UI. So you can see the prioritization here, the links to the swarms and Reich in line. It's also in Discuss. Just a quick update on a couple of those already. Next slide. We've created what's called our critical path to launch. Inside, for everyone who is using Reich, you can see it. It's very hard to actually, I haven't figured out how to kind of export this into something that's visual, but this is the best that I could do for now. So you can see these are the swarms or major kind of features that are blocking the critical path. There's still stuff to add. So keep your eye on this, or you can star it and it will be kind of, you can see the exclamation mark next to the title, which means that it's a high priority. And basically this will get updated and regularly dependencies will be added, and we'll see how we're progressing to hit this goal by the end of the quarter. Next slide. So as we saw on the last screen, Reich is now kind of ready for us to use. We finished our trial. We've decided to go ahead with it. And we've got 50-seat license, which pretty much means for everyone on the team, there's a license to use it if it's something that you want to use. Here's an example of it in use with Oscar, Dean, and Jared have been using for some of the protocol work. So it just kind of helps get like a visual of things that have been worked on, what the critical path looks like, what are some milestones, and things like that. As I said, it's not mandatory to use. It's just a helpful tool there if you need it, and the janitors will be updating this for the majority of the swarms. On the kind of shifting gears, swarm budgets. A lot of the S&T utility swarms that we're planning to ship at the end of Q2, at the end of Q1 have now slipped into Q2. Things like Tribute Talk, Telenetwork. So please update the estimated completion times in GitHub in the ideas repo, just so that we can then figure out exactly what the swarm budgets should end up looking like. So right now, a lot of the swarms that were meant to launch 31st of March have now shifted to 30th of June. I think if there's some sort of realistic estimates of when the first versions will go out the door, that would be great to get updated. So if you're a swarm lead, please make sure that that happens. And finally, some really exciting news. We believe this is the first revenue that Status has generated. So it's super exciting. Amazing work to the entire Keycard team for making this happen. We've just ticked over, as of yesterday, 1,000 euros in sales, which is not a lot, but it's definitely a significant milestone and hopefully we can see that grow into 10 and 100x that amount. But it's really exciting to have that happen. So huge kudos to the entire KeyCard team. Amazing work. And that's it from me.
Great, thanks, Nabil. And yes, congratulations, KeyCard team. Exciting stuff. Hopping over to marketing and Johnny.
Thanks, Johnny. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Cool. Next slide, please. So here's a priorities list for 2019, and you can jump into the notes doc there, but just a quick recap. Our priorities for the year right now are increase community developer contribution, whether that's through bounties or just through issues in GitHub, increase non-developer contribution. So writing, design, spreading the word, meetups, things like that. We want to then raise awareness and build reputation within the security community. Obviously, to position Status, the application, and everything we're doing as a secure and private messenger communication tool. And then finally, to increase awareness and use of SNT utility features, and with a priority on the Teller network. So you can jump into that notes doc, and there's some more details and scope and bill of materials and stuff like that around that. So next slide. So the past couple months has been spent on an updated website. It was pushed live on Friday. So thanks to everyone who helped with that, from reviewing copy, design, Jakob and Anna for being amazing towards the end. But have a look through. It's fresh, it's new, and yeah. So phase 2 is starting now. We're working on content around all the research initiatives, S&T utility, the features, and then optimizations. So things like animations, design updates, and little updates here and there. Next slide. For Q2 and Q3, we've got a few campaigns that we're working on now. First is a security and privacy campaign. You can check out the bill of materials there, but the first thing we wanted to do is really just update our channels and the language we use around Status, making sure it's all consistent, and it once again promotes how secure and private the application is and everything that we do within the organization. And then there's a series of content blog posts that I'm working on with Corey around what makes Status secure, both at an organizational level and then also at a technical implementations level. So working with Corey on that now, and then those are planned to release over the course of the next few months. We've got like an open source security best practice guide, which we'll be pushing and trying to garner a little bit of community contribution around that, and probably working with some other projects in the space to add to that. And then finally, looking into security events, security-minded events, to try and just break out of this kind of Ethereum space and introduce Status to the security community. We're trying to kind of hero Corey on various podcasts, and then whether it's through paid content or third-party content, but just try and amplify our message around security through third parties. Next slide. Finally, we've got the S&T utility campaign, and then a lot of work around the token economy thought leadership that Barry is doing. So working with Carl, Jared, Nabil, and some of the janitors on that. So you can check out the brief and the bill of materials here. But we've started with these kind of swarm updates, once again, just to try and raise awareness around the various features. And then we're also currently building out a page on the website that just has all of the information around SNT, the various use cases of it to highlight the white paper deliverables, and then we'll kind of use that as a hub for the campaign itself. So linking out to the workbook that Barry's done, the workbooks that Barry's done, and then we've got a series of blog posts from Corey highlighting the workbooks, and then just really raising awareness around the research we're doing around token economics. And then what we're going to try and do is approach various economics professors to have them critique and review it. Because once again, this work is very much research, and we want to validate, critique, review, just get as many eyes on it as possible. So potentially approach, university professors, whether it's from potentially MIT or Cornell, or people who have crypto economics and economics programs at their schools. Next slide. I wish I had an image here, but YuGiOh is working on a translation pilot campaign in Korea. So now that we've got the website done, the application has obviously got some new copy. So YuGiOh is running a pilot in Korea just to test out process, where there are issues for translating all of these properties. We've used localize, and I know that there were some issues in the past just around QA and validation before we actually implement the translation. So YuGiOh's working on that, and he's got a cool little website that he's put together. It'll potentially live at like translate.status.im, where we can then track the progress of the translations, and then also allow anyone from any language to translate status into their language. And a really cool example of that is React translated yet? I should drop a link in here. I'll share it, but it's just a cool open source way of translating everything. So keep a lookout for that. Next slide. And here's just a list of other projects that we've got going on. Obviously, we want to be at events. So we'll be at EthCon Korea. YuGiOh will be speaking about all things status in Seoul. There's a UNICEF Surge hackathon in Bangkok, where some of the team members will be, both from Keycard and Embark, as well as status. And then planning our Q3 event schedule. There's obviously a lot coming up, whether it's the ETH Global events or security events that we want to kind of push and highlight Corey. And then also trying to think a little bit outside of Ethereum and the blockchain space, whether it's React or Angular or various programming languages, just to introduce status outside of the core Ethereum community. And then also we've been approached by the DigitalOcean team for Hacktoberfest. It's still a while away, but want to start planning for that now. The Teller Network brand and planning go-to-market. So Nabil obviously mentioned the go-to-market strategy. So we're thinking about that. Obviously thinking about global campaigns and global comms, but then also figuring out specific markets and regions that we want to target. Korea being one of those. So we're just kind of doing some market sizing now, some initial research on the audience. And there's actually a really helpful report that came out a couple weeks ago. So it's looking like Korea is a really good market for us to target for that. So research, setting goals and KPIs. We'll then think about positioning and branding the Teller Network. Is it a status product? Do we want to kind of brand it on its own like Keycard and Embark, or is it kind of a hybrid? So a lot of the research we're doing now will inform that decision, and then obviously moving into production. And then we want to really clean up and kind of push the developer onboarding experience through documents and through docs and content. So we're defining user journeys now. Pascal's helped out with that. And then we want to start with a very small scope of one's very, very specific user journey, whether that's the first touch point someone has with our documentation, or if it's something specific like extensions. Probably won't do that now, but something like that. We want to define a very small scope, and then really, really perfect it through content, through channel strategy, and all of that stuff. So we're working on that now. And then finally, working with the Embark team. There's a series of content that we're going to push out. Pascal has been amazing with that via Twitter. And we also want to pilot like a contributor welcome package throw. So when we notice someone using Embark and is taking an active role in the channels, we just want to send like a surprise and delight kind of thing, like a little welcome package with some swag, some t-shirts, maybe a little bit of S&T. We don't know. We're trying to define that exactly what that is now, but just a welcome package for anyone. And then, of course, the event strategy. So the Embark team will be at the Surge hackathon in Bangkok. And then also, there's so many meetups and hackathons throughout the year that we just really want to position Embark well there. So that's it for me.
Cool. Thanks, Johnny. You guys are killing it. All right. Next up, we have Corey with a security update. Corey? Are you on?
Hear me okay?
Yes, now I can.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so a couple things regards to security. This one's not super security, but definitely is speaks to the resiliency of status and our user base when we start onboarding a bunch of people. We currently rely on a cluster that basically routes all messages. And if that were to fail, as we saw during Chaos Unicorn Day, the usability and resiliency of the status network is quite low. So in order to combat that, I came up with an idea of eating our own cluster. And that's basically a way in which we can remove our dependency on the cluster while also allowing our core contributors to learn how to educate those to do the same. It's initiated by a Discuss post, which you can find there, but the too long didn't read there is that all core contributors run a status node. Now, there's quite a bit of planning and cost analysis associated with this, which is what we're going through in the Discuss post and furthermore. But the idea, an overall idea, is that we start with the technical folk who worked a lot on mitigating all the problems we faced during Chaos Unicorn Day to start running status nodes themselves and get them up and running and deal with any problems we may face along the way so that we can prepare the next tranche of folks, the semi-technical folks, to do the same thing and teach them how to do it. And then they go through all the problems that they face, write guides, fix whatever infrastructure needs to be fixed so that it's easier to deploy and run a node at home. And then we move on to the last tranche, which is the non-technical folks at Status, the core contributors who aren't running code, who aren't doing things that's super technical. And once we onboard them and teach them how to do it, by that time, if we do this successfully, then everyone in the company is running a node, which offsets a tremendous amount of the cost we currently eat to run status nodes. It distributes the amount of work or to monitor the cluster as opposed to putting it all on a few people who understand how we run this infrastructure. It drastically increases the resiliency and reliability of the network itself. And when we start getting new users, we have, as opposed to maybe 5 or 6 people who know how to teach someone how to run a node, we have over 60. So all of these things can make a big difference in not only the back-end resiliency of how the status network runs, but the ability to make that grow, as well as potentially reducing the operational costs of running that network on status itself. So kind of excited about this. I think it's a great way for us to not only make status stronger, but help make it grow quickly and hopefully in a cost-effective way. So, but we need to do some more planning in terms of how much that's going to cost and the associated time it's going to take from people not doing the work they're already doing, because we don't want to like stop production altogether in order to get this done. It needs to be done in a good way. So that's that. I'll have more stuff. I think by next town hall, I should have a roadmap based on what this is going to look like and if we're capable of doing it soon. As for security, we have, if you didn't know, we have a security retainer with Trailbits. That is basically a way for us to do security-related overview of projects within Status. So anytime we have a product, we can ping them to have them check it out. If there's any fishy pull requests or things that are in question, we can always bring them in to have a quick assessment or throw their weight from a security lens perspective. They also do organizational process check and consultation with me to make sure that the organization of Status is running appropriately and we're not doing anything that's out of the ordinary or not best practices. So if I have questions or someone does, we can always ping them for that type of stuff. And we're also doing a lot of work to integrate a lot of the Trailbits tooling into Embark, as well as our GitHub repos that will help us improve the security process of developing smart contracts as well as automation. So we have automated security tooling. And so that way, whenever we go out to get a security audit on anything that we do, it'll be faster and cheaper because we spent quite a bit of time up front making sure that we do a lot of the things that a security audit would typically do, which minimizes the time it takes for them to do it because it's easier for them because we've already done a good portion of it, and so on and so forth. As a part of that, I've created a new process for each swarm called the security check. So it's a new email group called the security-check at status.im, which projects should ping at least 2 points in their phases. One is when they're starting a new Swarm project. And so they ping security check its status with the idea of what they're doing and answers to a list of questions, which you can find at the bottom, that try and help guide you on making sure that you're answering and looking at some pivotal aspects of what your project is supposed to do and why it works and how it fits in within the ecosystem, so that it's easier for us to assess risk and overall complexity of what you're doing, so we know how to move forward in looking at the security implications of your project. And when that's done, so we have an idea of what's going on, well, you ping us again when you're winding down a project, which by then you should be continuing answering a lot of the initial questions that you started with, but then have a second series of questions that make sure you've checked off all the things you should have looked at. So when you do that, basically what I'm hoping is that you've created, in the process of answering these questions, you've created a spec sheet, as well as done all of the final checks and balances that would be required if we were to just hand it off into an audit. So basically, by the time you do your winding down, or you're winding down the project and you start to ping security check, the questions below have guided you to the point where it's just ready to be shipped off for an audit, and the way that an auditor would like to see it. So for more information on what those questions are and what you should be pinging security check with, you can find those two notes documents that help guide that. And if you have any questions or feedback, I'm more than happy to take that in and iterate on those documents to make them easier for you. And that's it for me.
Great. Thanks so much, Corey. Really great stuff. All right, everyone, let's jump into the Swarm updates. First up, we have Eric with Tribute to Talk. Eric?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Hello. So regarding Tribute to Talk, we are now in testing. I would expect it to go over the course of this week, so it will be a bit of back and forth. So regarding the Swarm, chat Swarm, we are going to work on other things, and as soon as we get feedback from testing, we will fix the bugs and so on. There will also be an update, like a blog post updating on which decisions we've made, what the feature will look like, and how we see it evolve in the future. And regarding the deployment of the feature, it might depend on some decisions that we still have to take regarding whether we deploy on mainnet or testnet first. So yeah, there will be probably some of these decisions will be made by the time we make the update, but it's yeah, it's soon to be available. That's it for Tribute to Talk. Thank you.
Great, exciting stuff. Jumping next, we have network incentivization with Igor.
Yeah, so one thing that I wanted to start with is that this Swarm was it wasn't put on hold precisely, but it was like down prioritized a little bit. But still, we are doing some practical things in there. So first is the admin UI for nodes. I think it fits well with what Corey was saying was about like running the node, and especially non-technical people to be able to run a node, because, well, having a nice UI is always better than having a console if you're not a non-technical person. And then we also did another part, like Andrea did the first working draft. He made an actual PR to status go, that where you can like register your nodes in a smart contract and promote these nodes with the consensus, and also pay the reward there on a testnet. So again, it was a little bit down prioritized, and it was a little bit the line between it and the protocol swarm became a bit more blurry than it was before. But I guess that's it for now.
Great, thanks. All right, jumping next, we have Status Teller Network. Yuri?
All right, so we did R&D on scaling with state channels. we implemented most of it. We just run into some limitations with those channels that we're looking for alternative solutions. And we're going to look at multiple solutions at the same time. We're going to look at also at side chains and the possible scalable solutions. We did some pre-security review, basically. We found some issues that were fixed. We still have more to do. We're going to experiment with the other tools too. And we implemented the decentralized arbiter. And next slide. All right, and the DAO, we updated the repo to Embark 4 and Create React app. We fixed some issues with a corrupt database that could happen sometimes when accessing the website and some network errors. And we added the list project features, which makes the whole thing much more complete now and usable. So next up for both Teller and DAO is we're gonna do some more detailed test runs with multiple people in multiple locations and see what we learn from it.
Great, thanks, Yuri. All right, next up, Ricardo.
Hi, since last week, the research on the delegation, I started to talk with Aragon to see if they also researching on liquid democracy, so we can probably have some collaboration together, or the use of a convention like a similar interface, so there is a interoperability. Regarding the development, immigrated to the material UI, and there is now a factory for creating new delegations and another UI for setting and viewing your delegation. And that's it for now.
Cool, thanks, Ricardo. All right, next, core improvements. Back to you, Igor.
Yeah, so basically why the incentivization was a little bit down prioritized is to ramp up something in core improvements. So, and we are making a final test for the new release 0.12.0, and also we have a hotfix planned after that, because there are so many things we want to fit in, but we don't want to make it like a never-ending release. We want to release and then release one more time with more. So a few things. There were tons of bugs fixed there, including for the ones that were fixed by non-core contributors, which is very cool. And then one more thing is like a focus on message reliability and improvements. What's it called? Like message gaps that I showed like 2 weeks ago, I guess, the screenshot when we know that you didn't receive a history for a certain period of time because it was outside the typical window we receive, we actually show it to you right now, and you can download more messages. And what we are working on right now is that using the same mechanics with these gaps, you will be able to retrieve much more history in the any channel. It's like up to a month or something instead of just up to a day like right now. Also, what we're working on is like performance improvements from another side, from the mail server perspective. And I guess Andrea is doing a very good job there. We found one of the reasons why sometimes mail servers are being slow. So I guess we're trying to address it, but it's not a small thing. It doesn't fit into 2 weeks. So it's a work in progress right now. Also, one more performance improvement that we are doing, and also a simplification of our code base, is to move the protocol code to status go side. Again, didn't start like right now. It was there for quite a while, but I hope that maybe by the next town hall we'll have some fruits of this already done. And we are testing a slightly more reliable way to get messages from mail servers, meaning that if you have a spotty connection, you will should be able to sooner or later retrieve your messages. Not like right now we repeat it over and over again. But again, there are 2 new releases coming pretty soon. So that's it from my side.
Great, thanks, Igor. Exciting to see it. Next up, we have protocol with Dean.
So we've been continuing to document the current protocol. We've been working on the reference client a bit, as well as the status improvement protocols. Then Oscar started working on minimum viable data sync requirements. We've been continuing to spec out the minimum viable data sync, and we're working on an implementation there, which we're going to implement into the reference client as well. And we continue to have our bi-weekly calls with the Web3 Foundation, Validity Labs, NIM, Swarm, to talk about Web3 messaging.
Cool, thanks, Dean. All right, and I believe that's it for our Swarm updates. Now we're going to jump into Q&A. These were questions that were submitted from the Town Hall questions. So the first one is a chat interface. Currently, the status chats page layout reflects that of Telegram. I know there was work going on to a separate group chats, but wondered if there were any current or future plans to make the chat UI more akin to multiple subcategories. Wow, similar to how Discord functions. I feel as status grows, its user base is easier to manage a large amount of chat rooms and will appeal to a larger demographic. Does anybody have an answer to this question?
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly chime in here. Ultimately, like we would like to try. I personally would like to treat chats, dApps, and even accounts within status as their own unique contexts. So hopefully one day in the future we'll have much better filtering rules and different ways that you can create your own kind of customized subcategories or customized groups based on these filtration rules. There will also be things like tagging systems and yeah. So it wouldn't be like what currently exists in Discord. It would be basically a more unique way to manage like tabs in a browser, for example. When that will be done, who knows? Maybe never, because we might even find a better solution than that.
All right, cool. Thanks, Jared. All right.
Also, regarding this question, in future, we expect to have many forks of the client that have different chats interface. So we can actually have for a specific demographic that likes a specific way of grouping their information, we can have a fork for that. And I see that in future statuses, we will also decouple this chat feature as a specific dApp. So we can have multiple interfaces for that. So of course, there is a lot of road to go to implement this separation in account and a wallet in the database of chats. But yeah, in future we want to have, because everyone will have a different taste on these things, and I think it's a valid point of researching on what's the best for general and having these specific forks for example, a Discord-like status. Currently, we have a fork that is something like a Gitter or like another made by Status.js. But yeah, that's an example of a different fork that uses status. Is interoperability works with, so you can communicate with a different UI with the same.
Yeah, that's Ricardo's spot on. Like we even have Stratus, which is a prototype implementation of the status protocol in NIM that uses Qt. So hopefully we see a lot more of those pop up as we progress.
All right, fantastic. Jumping into the next question. It is messaging research. With the research into alternative messaging protocol other than Whisper currently being undertaken, is the aim to have this new messenger protocol implemented within status before a main version 1 release, given Whisper drawbacks? Okay. Anyone on Whisper? Maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unlikely that we'll move from Whisper for the version 1 at least release, but yeah, I would definitely thinking about the way on how to upgrade the user base afterwards.
I want to add to that. We're doing a lot of research into other messaging protocols into this, as well as a data sync layer, which will allow you to swap the underlying message patching protocol relatively painlessly without affecting everything above that layer. So like the user won't experiencing much different from like a end user perspective, but the way the messages are routed will change drastically. So that's kind of the approach, is to introduce the data sync layer and then continue much further research on the way those messages are passed below that layer.
All right, cool. Thanks, guys.
I think that we also have a great time of using Whisper. Like the research of messaging, it's not like we're going to change suddenly, because we had this discussion in the core dev calls about changing the protocol rules, and that's not something that we are going to just throw away the old clients and change to something new. So of course the research is for now is just a research. So I see that Whisper is long living this year yet. I don't see it like being replaced so fast. We might implement some incentivization to the nodes to connect themselves, but Whisper have their advantages that we don't want to lose. So we need a really good candidate to substitute it, to replace it.
All right, is that it? Do we have any other questions maybe from people in the meeting or on YouTube? All right, doesn't look like we have any questions, so that wraps up our town hall. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. And I do have confirmation that Rachel will be back. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.
Thanks, everyone.